government makes it very, very clear to make the government or allow patients to be the stewards of their own health records. I think that's really, really important. And here's a timeline of that final rule that I described. And so really this new FHIR API capability, should be rolling out by 2022, as you see here. And so this is, things are rolling. I mean, we're pretty far. This red line is kind of where we are now. And there are many, many hospitals that already have a FHIR-based API. I don't know if you've gone to your health system, and if you have an iPhone, I don't know if you've noticed that you can get your health records on your iPhone. That's basically leveraging these APIs, but right now it's limited to about 13 data elements. So, and those data elements, or at least the number, will increase over time. It'll take time to develop those. So really, the idea is that you meet patients where they are, and you can provide through this more personalized precision medicine and care, which is ultimately what we're all after, and take care from the very expensive four walls of the hospital, to less expensive care settings, and focus on prevention. And again, the key, I can't highlight this enough, when people say, how do I get the data? Where do I get the data? The patient is the key. The patient is the consumer, is key to unlocking that health data. And really the term that's kind of being thrown around is that we're going into this consumer/patient authorized data exchange. And so I think that's super, super important. So there's all this excitement, all this hype, but I know from the academic setting, it's really challenging to build a digital health application. It's a very long process, from ideation to developing a spec sheet, hiring engineers, getting funding. If it's a research project, you have to get IRB approval, you have to get security approval, test for bugs, validate, launch. It's just a very arduous process. And more importantly, there are quite a few stakeholders involved when you're developing these sorts of issues, because there's quite a bit of risk, right? Where there's a privacy security risk that you need to manage. And it's pretty challenging to kind of work with all the stakeholders to make sure that you're meeting and managing this risk appropriately. So it's a pretty tall order to build one of these research applications. And we get approached all the time from providers and so on in the research community and the academic community who want to build applications. And I felt like they were always starting from the beginning. And I was like, why are they always starting from scratch? Why don't we build something or give them something that is a very good starting point that can get them to a certain level from which they can customize and go from to save time and money. Building these applications also, it can be quite expensive. I would say from beginning to end, for an average application, 200,000 is not unreasonable. If you were to go to a dev shop to ask, what it would cost. Also, it takes so long to get all the steps done and get the approvals that it takes on average about 2 years from, concept to launch. And many, as you can see, just die on the grapevine because they just don't make it to launch because of all the challenges and hurdles. So with CardinalKit, we're trying to build a cable car for you to get you maybe not to the top of the mountain or your mountain, but to at least the base, get you halfway there or 3/4 of the way there. And so I'm going to basically stop here and hand it off to Vishnu. And Vishnu, I will just continue controlling the slides, if that's all right.
Sounds great. I guess before I start, does anyone have any questions about any of those slides we just had? No? Okay. Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for coming. My name is Vishnu. I'm an internist, and I'm also a software engineer, and I work on the CardinalKit team. And I want to tell you a little bit about how CardinalKit works. It's an open source platform and code base for digital health research and applications that combines a number of frameworks and SDKs that are available from the standard large standard companies like Apple and Google that like ResearchKit and HealthKit and Google Cloud, and puts that all together for you into a single framework that you can use to build your own digital health applications. So basically, CardinalKit is a starting point for developing your own digital health app. And the idea is that because we make all those connections for you, you can save a lot of time and a lot of money that you would normally have to spend if you had to start from scratch with a development team. And we're estimating that could be up to or even greater than $150,000 and about 18 months of development time to get you to the point you'd be at when you start with our software as a starting point. And some of the, like I said, some of the services and SDKs that we use are HealthKit, ResearchKit. We have some code for Bluetooth. And essentially what you would do is you would take our sample app, you can fork it, and then you can start building on top of it. And we can plug into the university IT managed backend. So if you have a study that you're going to run at Stanford, that's one way that we can help you set it up. And that way you'll have access controls. You can take advantage of lower maintenance costs and some other types of features like analytics and whatnot that are provided in the backend. Okay, so this slide basically shows how CardinalKit marries the front end and back end components that you would need to build a digital health app. So on the front end, we're primarily iOS at the moment. On iOS, Apple has created different SDKs that can be used to build components of digital health apps, but we've actually put all of those things together so you don't have to figure out all the specifics of how to make all of that work. Including ResearchKit, which lets you create complex surveys, and HealthKit, which lets you pull data in from various devices, the Apple Watch, any kind of sensors that are compatible with HealthKit, and also health records, which, as Dr. Alami mentioned, is the data that you can pull from your healthcare system by providing your patient credentials. And on the back end, we use Google Cloud services that are fully managed, specifically Firebase and Cloud Firestore, where we store all the data that's collected in your application, whether that's through your surveys or through HealthKit integration. And all that is automatically managed for you. So you can customize it, but right outside of the box, CardinalKit is able to download information from HealthKit, convert it into interoperable formats, and upload it to Cloud Firestore, from where you can visualize it in our dashboard, or you can use it for analytics and BigQuery, or you can do a number of different things with it. And so having that backend pre-wired for you makes it a lot easier to get up and going. This shows the three main components of the CardinalKit framework. We have an example app, which is a fully built iOS app with a pre-built user interface, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And you can pretty easily use it to set up surveys. You can use it to collect data from patients from different kinds of wearables. And you can modify a lot of the UI without having to change too much code. Some of the stuff you actually don't even need to touch the code for, but it's also open source, so you can build any sort of UI you want. You can add any sort of components you want. If you're a Swift developer, like the code is available for you to do anything you want with it. Then on the other side, we have a web dashboard. That's the third thing on the slide. And that is basically a method for you to visualize the data that's collected from the app. So if you imagine that the app is for a study or it's for remote patient monitoring, essentially you'll distribute the app to your study participants or your patients, have them use it, do periodic surveys that you can schedule for them, have them collect data from various sensors like the Apple Watch, and then you can visualize that data on the dashboard. And the dashboard has graphs and charts, and we'll show you how that works. Now, in between, we have the CardinalKit library. That's the data collection and processing engine that basically takes all the data that's coming from the app and converts it into interoperable formats. So essentially harmonizes it into a single format. So the two formats we support right now are OpenMHealth and FHIR. And as Dr. Alami mentioned, FHIR is the format that is codified in legislation through the 21st Century Cures Act. And we are actually the first framework that supports both of these. OpenMHealth also is an international mobile health data format. It's the first of its kind, and it is now approved as a mobile health data format through the IEEE. So both of those are approved internationally standards, and CardinalKit is the first to support both of those with patient-generated mobile health data. This just goes over the overall data pipeline. So essentially, what you can do is you can collect data from wearables or other devices. That data is what's called downloaded into the iOS application via HealthKit. Within the iOS application, the data is encrypted. We do allow you to use two-factor authentication, and we let you set granular permissions as for the patient, or we let the patient or the user set granular permissions in terms of what data is going to be shared with the backend. And I'll show you that in a little bit. And then once the data is collected on the phone, we sync it with Firebase. It's the serverless backend. And the cool thing about Firebase, if you haven't used it before, is it is completely quote unquote serverless. That doesn't mean there aren't servers. It means that Google manages everything for you. So basically the data will continue to upload, and it'll like scale as you add more and more data. So you don't have to manually provision servers or anything like that. And because there are so many different add-ons that you can use on Google Cloud, like you can use BigQuery, like for example, data in Cloud Firestore can be exported to BigQuery, where you can do analytics, and there are a lot of other options on Google Cloud. You can build those features into your application as well. And all the way on the right, we've showed that Stanford Medicine has a Stanford managed instance of Google Cloud. So for folks that are developing applications for Stanford, there is that option that we can actually deploy that application at Stanford on that Stanford managed instance.
Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I can
keep going.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think the only other thing was the custom rules. Yeah, I just mentioned that already. I think the custom rules, you can manage authentication and put custom rules for like who can access what, what piece of data and whatnot. That's all possible in Firebase. Okay, so I have put together here an example architecture, which we are in the process of building, and many of these components are already built. But this is an idea of how you could integrate a CardinalKit app with an electronic health record system, which is really useful if you want to build something that's going to be used in a clinical context. For example, a physician in a clinic managing a condition like diabetes, and you want to create an app that allows patients to report outcomes and collect data at home, and then allow the physician to view that data within their workflow when they're seeing the patient. So basically the way this works is, you have your patients who collect data from various devices. Then you have your CardinalKit based app, which gathers the data from those devices via HealthKit and then normalizes them into OpenM Health. Now from OpenM Health, that data is stored into Google Cloud Firestore and can be visualized on a web dashboard. We've already spoken about that. But in addition, what we can do is we can take that data that's in OpenM Health and map it to Fire. And in the Fire format, we can actually store it into Fire compatible data stores like GCP Cloud Healthcare API, which has a Fire store. We can actually store that data in GCP's Firestore, and that'll make it available through a Fire compliant API. So there are many software packages, EHRs and other software on the market that know how to consume data from a Fire API. So we can actually make it available via the Fire API that GCP provides. And what we can do is we can have that data appear in what's called a Smart on Fire dashboard. And a Smart on Fire dashboard is basically a dashboard that can be launched from within an electronic health record system like Epic or Cerner or any of the other major electronic health record system. So when you're inside a patient's chart, you can actually open up the dashboard and you can see information about the patient from this external app within your workflow without having to switch to another application and log in again and all of that. The other thing to see here is that we can obviously take the data that we have in Cloud Firestore or even in the Healthcare API Firestore and export it to BigQuery, for instance, which is a SQL database. And it provides a lot of built-in analytics and machine learning functionality. So if you want to be able to do that, it's fairly straightforward for data scientists or researchers or anyone wants to use a lot of Google's pre-built machine learning functionality.
So I think it's important to mention that, the concept is to build these in kind of modular components so that, you can either implement or not implement what you need for your project.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are all these boxes are modular components, and every project has different needs. So if you need a Fire integration, you can do that. If you don't, you can just use our regular web dashboard. You don't need to use BigQuery. You can connect to something else. So again, yes, it's just as Dr. Lamy said, they're all modular components that you can add into your project if you need them.
Perfect.
And
we could just, I think we can just jump to this.
Okay, yeah, I think this is just a note on HIPAA. HIPAA is obviously a very important thing to talk about when you're dealing with patient data as a covered entity. So the shared responsibility matrix that we have here on the slide shows that becoming HIPAA compliant is the responsibility of both the app and the patient and team. So for example, there are technical portions to HIPAA compliance. There are also administrative portions. And of course, the patient has to actually provide consent for us to use the data. So what we see here is on the left, what can our framework do and what can the server do? So Google Cloud provides data encryption at rest. Firebase can be set up to have two-factor authentication. With Google Cloud, you can have breach notification and things like that. On the mobile app, we do encrypt the data at rest and in flight. So it's always encrypted. And we have additional safeguards. Like for example, every time you close the app and you open it up again, you do have to put in a passcode in order to see all the data. So we try our best to make sure that the data stays encrypted and stays private. We also have data access permissions, as I talked about before. On Firebase, you can set rules for who is allowed to access. You can create users and group those users and decide, in your Firebase role, which group of users or which particular users are allowed to access certain pieces of data. So that's all the technical portion, but it's important to know that there's more to HIPAA than just the technical portion. And as far as the patient is concerned, obviously we have to obtain consent to collect and share any data from the patient. And the team that's implementing the app has things to do as well. There's BAA, which is an business associate agreement that has to be signed with Google Cloud, because they'll be handling the data. People who who come into contact with any PHI, any staff that come into contact with PHI, protected health information, do need HIPAA training. And you do need to have access controls to make sure that people are only looking at data that they actually need for their job. And if there's a breach or loss of data, you need to be able to notify the patient and others that's happened. So that's the concept, is like CardinalKit is HIPAA capable, not necessarily HIPAA compliant, because there's more to HIPAA compliance than just the technical side of things.
Yeah, that's perfect. And this just shows how Stanford, for studies that are done at Stanford, the concept is that you would point the application to Stanford's instance of the Google Cloud platform so that they would manage that instance and, the access controls and so on.
Exactly.
That's what this basically shows. Anything else you would add, Vishnu?
No, I think that is perfect.
Okay, perfect.
And I guess this slide talks about a partnership with the University Research IT mHealth platform. I don't know if you want to add anything about
that. I mean, basically, and Lay's on the line, she can maybe talk about it too. I mean, the idea is, if you use this, the more you stick to the framework, kind of the lower, not the lower the bar, but the easier it should be to get your approvals when you try to get your study through IRB and more importantly, the data risk assessment. And we're trying to kind of, make this more widely available as a framework for most studies, so that you don't have to really start from zero for every study. That's the idea.
Exactly. And that's the concept of the TSA pre-check.
Exactly. And this can be copy pasted to other institutions as well, as long as they have the same, what's important is that Stanford has an agreement with Google Cloud, a BAA in place, and that they've worked, or they're working with to use that as a kind of secure backend infrastructure.
Exactly.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll let you go.
I think this kind of just summarizes the players involved in the setup here. So we would have your developer, the researcher, the IRB may need to be involved, university IT, and privacy officer, and of course the patient. And the TSA pre-check is basically what we mean by that is that CardinalKit handles a lot of the underlying infrastructure that's needed to make all of these parts play together.
Yep, perfect.
This is just kind of a restatement or a recap of what we were just talking about. The main purpose of CardinalKit is to save you time and money in developing your digital health app. Up to 18 months, up to 150,000 is what we've found. And just to summarize, this is a list of what CardinalKit provides you. As soon as you download it from our website and open it up on your computer, you will get a basic application to start with. You'll get two-factor authentication on Firebase, a modern architecture on the back end, which is powered by Google Cloud Platform, data pipeline, which will allow you to collect any sort of health kit data you want from the patient with their consent, an informed consent process, which lets you basically create a consent document and allow the patient to sign it if you're, for the purposes of a study or for clinical use. HIPAA ready, as we said, compliance does involve more than just the technical portion, but we have done a lot to get you to the spot where you don't have to worry too much about the technical portion, and a community. So we have a Slack channel, we have workshops just like this one, and we have a GitHub. So we have a pretty vibrant community of developers who are involved, many different teams across Stanford and beyond. We integrate natively with iOS SDKs for health, such as HealthKit, ResearchKit, and CareKit, which is a big deal because if you've ever tried to build an iOS app, you know that even these SDKs are not particularly easy to integrate on your own. It takes time. And also, we are the first platform, or so the first framework that provides data interoperability with OpenM Health, which is the first international mobile health data standard. With a lot of the other solutions on the market, you will get your data in a proprietary format, but we have tried to keep with an open source format. And Fire Data Store, again, Fire is the standard now, and it's going to be the dominant standard in the future, especially with this legislation for exchanging health data between systems, and we're already supporting that. And finally, we have our web dashboard with visualizations and the ability to generate and edit surveys that you can push out to patients from the backend without actually touching the app code, which is really cool. And we'll show you all of this shortly.
Perfect. Yeah. So that comes to the end of this first part. And I think as a next step, we're going to, I guess, Vishnu, if you could just show the sample app.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give people an idea. I'll stop sharing.
Before I jump into the sample app, does anyone have any questions about what we just showed?
Yeah, great point.
Are we good?
I don't see any in the chat.
I have a question about you support Google Cloud. How about Amazon and the Microsoft?
So at the moment, our iOS app is developed to work primarily with Google Cloud. In the future, we're hoping to make it a little bit more cloud agnostic, but for the moment, it's only Google Cloud.
Yeah, because we had talked to Oliver this morning about maybe supporting a HoloLens from Microsoft as a device. So that'll be probably useful to talk to Microsoft about Azure, a platform that, I think that'll be interesting.
Very true. No, I mean, ideally you want to be agnostic and it needs to plug in, plug in a modular way with, you can choose any backend you want. Mm-hmm. So for us locally, we started here at Stanford. And so because they have a BAA with Google Cloud Platform and, it's a place to start, but over time, definitely want to expand to make it available on other backend services.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. So I think I can go ahead and show you the sample app. So I'm just gonna pull up my phone. So I'm gonna just walk you through the onboarding of the sample app to show you what you're gonna get. So what I'm showing you now is the example application that you can download from our GitHub and get started with using in about 30 minutes. I mean, you just have to do a little bit of setup. You have to set up your Firebase backend and hook it up, but then you'll be able to use our example app out of the box and then start customizing it. So let me just share my screen. Here's my desktop. Okay.
All right, we see it.
Are you able to see my phone?
Yep, yep.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the CardinalKit app. So you can customize everything you see. Great. This is just a test app, but this is the screen that you'll get if you haven't signed up for the app, before, like you're a new user. And all of this information that you see here can actually be customized within the app without modifying any of the source code. So I'll show you quickly how we can do that in a little bit, but I'm going to actually go ahead and hit join study. So we have like a full onboarding process where you can put in information about what your app does and whatever you want your user to know about. So for example, here's a screen where you can talk about what kind of data you're going to be gathering. Here's a screen that you can talk about your privacy features, a screen that you can talk about what you're going to do with the data that you gather. If this is a study, you can mention if there's any significant time commitment, and you can add more information about your study here. All these screens are customizable. So you can adjust them if you want, you can remove them if you don't want. And what I'm showing here is actually a consent form. So if you're running a research study, it's really useful to be able to have your participants sign a consent form digitally. So what will happen is once they read through, tap agree, they'll be asked to put in their name, and all these titles and whatnot can be customized. They'll be asked for their signature. So I'm just going to sign here. And then what happens is a PDF is generated with their actual signature and date and saved on the phone. So you can actually use that as a signed consent document. Now we use sign in with Apple as default because it's really easy. Every iPhone has it. And you don't have to worry about creating a new account and remembering a password, but you can use regular old username and password if you want to. Now, the app asks for a passcode because we want to make sure that data is protected because this is health data. So whatever passcode I put in will be asked every time I open the app. I won't have to sign in again, but I will have to put in my passcode for my protection. So I'm going to make that 1234. Now CardinalKit is going to ask me permission to read my HealthKit data. So as you can see here, we can select individual pieces of data that we want. Sorry, it's asking me. Oh, okay. It allows me to give all of the options to the patient. So if the patient can go through and look at all of the things here and share just exactly what they want. And you don't have to give them all of these options, actually. I'll show you how you can actually, in our configuration file, you can choose which pieces of data to offer to the patient, and then the patient can choose which ones they want. You can also just turn on everything. You can do the same thing for health records. With health records, you can pick which pieces of data you want to expose to the app, and you can hit share current records. You can choose whether you want to automatically share new records or you want the user to be prompted before sharing new records. And now I'm on the CardinalKit app, so I'm signed in. So if you look at the main screen here, we can put tasks for our users to do. So we can have surveys, we can have active tasks. So I'll just show you the survey. This is like a questionnaire. And in our questionnaire, we can have all sorts of different types of questions. We can have multiple choice question. This is a numerical scale. We can also have a multiple choice question. And you can also have a series of different questions in the same pane. So here's two questions that kind of go together, a separate question. And patients can have a schedule where you'd like to have them do a survey every so often, maybe once a week, maybe more, maybe less. And that will show up here in our schedule tab. So if you look at our schedule tab, across the top, we have dates, and each date will show the task that you've scheduled for your patient or your user in this case, I have a daily task of 2,000 steps. And the way this works is the ring at the top for the particular day will fill in for the percentage of tasks that you've completed. So if there are 4 or 5 tasks, then, if there are 5 tasks, for example, each task will give you 20% completion of the ring. And so it's a nice way for patients to be able to check how much they've done, and we can go kind of backwards and forwards and see, what we have to do on different days. We have a contact page here where you can put in information about physicians or study coordinators that you want the patient to be able to reach out to. And here on our profile page, the patient can do a number of things. They can upload their latest records, change their passcode, report bugs, view the consent document, or completely withdraw from the study. And the last thing I want to show you is you can actually visualize data right in the app. So if I go here to the coffee survey, for example, I can put in that I drink 5 cups of coffee. And now if I go to the results, I'll see that, my pie chart shows that I put in 5 cups of coffee once, can go in again and put in 1 cup of coffee. So now you see my pie chart's been updated. So the data can actually be visualized for the patient right in the app. So that's basically our mobile app, the example app that you'll find on our website. I want to quickly show you our, our dashboard. So this
And again,
is,
those are, I mean, when you get things out of the box, everything is turned on, but it's up to you whether you want to customize, what you want to customize and turn off. And the dashboard is great because it became very clear that people want a very easy way to not only see who's enrolled, but also to visualize the data.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine that you have a number of studies going on. These are all your studies. So what we can actually do is we can visualize the data that's being provided by all of our participants. Imagine I'm the researcher here. So I can see a list of all my participants. In this case, the names are not there. These are just email addresses, but you can do it however you want. So I'm going to open up one of the one of the participants.
I think they took my data. Oh no, it's still there. Good.
Is this your data? Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's still there.
So as you can see, we have all the data categorized by the type of data. So if you want to see heart data, we've got heart rate variability. If you want to see activity data, we've got all the different types of data that Apple Health Kit collects, and the patient has given us permission to upload. And we can actually drill into the data. So if I drill into the step count, maybe the step count isn't the best.
Yeah, no, that one.
Let's try the heart rate.
Yep, perfect. It's going to take a while to load because there's a lot of data. But just give it a second. Give it a second. Oh,
yeah, there we go. Okay, so these are ranges actually of the heart rate for each day. So these bars are each day's ranges, and we can actually change, the dates if we want to visualize different dates. So let's say, oh, sorry, I was a little bit, this is October. The dates are kind of reversed. So we can change the dates and we can zoom in and out. And anyway, the idea is that you can visualize all the data. And we also have an activity index here, which kind of looks at your overall activity as a moving average. And you can track that here as a kind of a vital sign. And we also have survey responses. So I'm not sure if you've taken any surveys.
And I think my data was wiped, but it's
Possibly.
okay.
But it looks like you did take the test survey.
Okay, good.
You did take the coffee survey too. So what you can see here is all of the survey responses for this particular user. So you see that he took the survey 8 times, and these are the answers and these are the dates. And you can look at it per question, you can look at it per user, but you can also look at it per survey of all the patients. So if you go to surveys here, so I created a test survey here. So if I click on details, I can actually see everyone who answered my survey. This survey had only one question: what do you like about candy corn? And do you like candy corn? So we have 2 people who answered it. We've got their data. And what's cool is we can actually download this as a CSV file. so that we can import that into whatever type of software we want to work with it. And the other neat thing we can do is we can actually create these surveys on the back end. So I won't go through everything, but we can actually put in, the type of question we want. So let's say we want to make a survey with 5 questions. We can, choose the specific types of questions we want. Is it a single choice or multiple choice or a scale or Boolean or a date, whatever type of data we're trying to pick, and then put that together. And when I hit save, it'll automatically appear on the list of tasks, the front screen of the app. And the other cool thing we can do is we can actually schedule, sorry, my Zoom is blocking the button, but if you go to the scheduler, we can actually schedule the surveys. So if you only want patients to take a survey once a week or once a month, you can actually schedule those days, and then it will show up on their schedule on those particular days. So that's basically the gist of the dashboard, the web dashboard. And
Yeah, let's see if there are any questions. And then I don't know if Mihir, we don't have much time. We only have like 8 minutes. So, but maybe Mihir can just give us a quick overview. If there are no questions, why don't you just go ahead, Mihir, and show us what you built, introduce yourself, and then also talk about the project a little bit.
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. My name is Mihir Joshi. I am a second-year undergraduate student at The Ohio State University studying biomedical engineering, and I'm using CardinalKit to make an app for the Sean N. Parker Center for Allergy and Asthma Research at Stanford to pilot a research study to hopefully see if we can improve adherence and patient and clinician communication for patients undergoing like allergy immunotherapies. And essentially that's a process in which patients are exposed to a certain dosage of, let's say, peanuts over the span of a year. And slowly that dosage is increased and they get desensitized over time. So the problem we're trying to solve or address is, the lack of adherence during this process, because then it can, take longer, or you may not even get desensitized. And so the app that I've been working on uses CardinalKit to make this work. So here we go. So here you can see that the views are a little bit different than what Vishnu was showing earlier in the sample app. And so like I mentioned, we're trying to track adherence. So here you can have a simple button that you can press that you can log your dose. So the metrics that we're really focused on are like the time you took it at, and then how much. So let's say today I wasn't feeling too great, so I took only half of my dose. So then you can save this, and because of the Google Cloud backend, this data is already saved both on the device and in the cloud store. And you can also log in any reactions you're having, just so you can visualize yourself, and then maybe show your clinician when you show your allergist when you see them in person. Now, one feature I would like to highlight is this report feature that we've built, which really helps you to see a nice little table of the data that you've been tracking. And because of the workflow at the Sean N. Parker Center, they actually want a PDF report, so they can just upload that into their electronic health record. And that was the workflow that works best for them. So here, you can select the date range. So I can select my starting time is like October 4th or 14th. And then let's say the end date is the 28th. And then if you generate the report, it'll take a few seconds here, but you can see a little PDF that shows up that you can scroll through, and you can see like the date, time, amount. And then right now we're working on adding like symptoms that the patients are experiencing. But what's really neat about this is that because it's a PDF, the patient has full control over what they can do with this. So they can just press the share button up here, and then they can share it, by email or whatever method they want to their provider. And so that's a little bit of a sneak peek of, the app that I've been working on that uses CardinalKit.
Yeah, that's great. And actually the PDF is probably the simplest hack to get into the electronic healthcare system, because there's something in the Epic at least called the media tab, where you can just, it's very common to upload reports there. So I think that's perfect. I think that summarizes everything. I'd love to hear from either Terrell or Namratha if you have any questions or not. And maybe if you're using digital health solutions, or where the need is, or if you have a need, or if you see this fitting in, or what you would need for it to work. Feel free to ask questions. If not, don't worry about it. Not a problem. But that pretty much, yeah, go ahead, Namratha.
I really like the presentation in terms of it's relevant, very relevant to where the industry's need is, especially when we want to pivot to digital. A lot of investment goes into kind of finding the right architecture, short term and long term. So I do see this as, from an organization perspective, when they're thinking of a short term need, this could probably be something that you could try and then get out there instead of trying to develop something long term within your own business. But where I see probably a lot of companies would want to invest in their own infrastructure is when you have a lot of multiple connected apps coming up based on different products. Now you want them, the information that's coming in from different sources to kind of interact, and then you kind of want analytics to kind of develop on that. So that's where probably you would want to go in-house versus start off with something like this, which is perfect with you at least are able to kind of get off the ground. So I really like that aspect of this presentation.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I know it's just very frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating when you have to just start from zero, and we're just trying to make it easy. It's not perfect by any means, but just want a good starting point. Well, perfect. That is, I think everybody, let's give everybody a minute or two back of their day. I think that was really good. Thank you everyone for joining. And, this was the first industry one that we didn't really advertise it that widely. I just sent some emails to some kind of friendly industry contacts. But if you think there's a reason to do it again, feel free to reach out to us. You can find more information on our CardinalKit website. It's an easy way to contact us, or on the Slack channel as well. And then a way to sign up is it's all on the cardinalkit.org website. So.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Coming.
Take care. Thanks, Lay.
Have
See you,
any
Terrell. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.